Hi everyone, in this third session on deviation from social norms, we'll explore some of the evaluation points and skills that you'll need to earn your AO3 marks. You may remember this from earlier sessions. This is the writing frame from Tutor to You, which I advise you to use when writing your evaluation to help you keep your structure and to prompt some detailed elaboration in your points as well. So for a quick recap, the point is where we start our AO3 paragraph and clearly state the point we're about to discuss. The first burger in this double whopper template is the elaboration of the point and why it's a limitation or a strength, followed by the second burger for more depth, which could be an inclusion of an issue in debate or a counter-criticism, but in this video we'll be looking at counter-criticising here. And then finally, the bottom bun to explain why the counter-criticism was worth noting. For your first task, let's start with the point, the top bun, and the first burger, the elaboration. So you can pause the video here for 5 minutes while you read and interpret the point and add an elaboration of what it means and an explanation for why it is a limitation. So you're going to do the first burger part of the writing frame. You can use your resources to help, including the wealth of study notes that are available on Tutor to You. So pause the video now for 5 minutes while you complete this task. Okay, so hopefully you were able to tackle that first point, but here's a suggested elaboration. This means that the era in which a behaviour is being displayed affects our perception of that behaviour. For example, homosexuality was unacceptable and illegal up until the 1970s, and now attitudes and social norms have changed. This is a limitation because it suggests that since social norms change over time, our definition of abnormality needs to change too. So you can see in this first burger there are two skills shown. Firstly, the clear elaboration on how time matters, followed by an explanation of why we're offering this as a limitation. Let's try that again with another 3 evaluation points. So pause the video for 10 minutes this time, whilst you add the elaboration and the explanation to the 3 evaluation points that are on the screen. So let's take a look at some suggestions. Now, if you want to copy these down, then you will need to pause the video again, or alternatively, you could just use a different coloured pen to make some annotations or some notes or some additions to your own answers. So when we're talking about the context as a limitation, the elaboration that we offer might go something like this. This means that some behaviours may only be considered abnormal in certain situations. For example, singing on a bus deviates from social norms, but singing in the shower does not. And this is a limitation as it suggests that the behaviour itself is not abnormal, the context is. Now, if we're talking about cultural norms as a limitation, we might suggest that this means that looking at social norms alone is not thorough enough, and that cultural norms and expectations must also be considered too. For example, the amount of personal space preferred differs from culture to culture, and this is a limitation as it means that our perception of social norms must adapt according to the culture in focus. And finally, if we were to talk about a strength, being that the definition can keep society orderly, we might suggest that this means social norms in society inform people of what is and is not acceptable to do, and that this maintains order in society, avoiding chaos and dysfunction. And this is a strength, so that it suggests that this definition of abnormality does have some practical and real-life use. Now, what you can do to take this evaluation further, which you are advised to do to reach level 4 quality evaluation, is to add a counter-criticism and an explanation of why this counter is worth noting. So notice here that we aren't going to be repeating ourselves, we're not going to use any information or evaluation again, we're going to offer something new, an opposing argument, and this is really going to help to build that discussion. So pause the video for 5 minutes here while you take our AO3 point from earlier and consider what you could offer as a counter-criticism, finishing off those last 2 parts of our writing frame. Hopefully you were able to think of something, but here's an example if not. So the limitation was focused around time, as we saw earlier. For a counter-argument, we could suggest However, we must consider that people do not have stable behaviours and that instead they change over time through experiences and physical changes. And this suggests that a flexible definition of abnormality, like deviation from social norms, is much more realistic and useful than a definition that is rigid. So we're offering our counter, but then we're also going to explain why this counter should be taken into consideration.